And we're going to get started. So welcome to my Edcamp. And if you see the slide and you can hear the music or anything going on, then you know you're all set. So all attendees were muted whenever you came in. So if you'll go ahead now and mute your mics. And in our chat box is where we'll have our question and answer feature. So when each panelist or facilitator finishes providing the tips and strategies for you, then you will also have an opportunity to ask questions or make comments there. But let's make sure that our chat box is working. So under my learning partners on the screen, you see an icebreaker, which is what I like to use as a connector. And so this is also another strategy if you're working with teachers or students to just kind of get everybody ready to talk and ready to share out, and also use the tools on the platform. So the question is, what is a binge-worthy show we should watch? Post the name and the channel in the chat box. What's a binge-worthy show we should watch? And in the chat box, if you just put the name and the channel. If you're looking for your chat box, it should be on the toolbar. And just hit chat. Outlander, I've heard a lot about that. Did someone say Andy Griffin? Oh my God, I haven't seen that in years. Good Girls, Netflix. I just started watching Ozark, Mr. Thomas. And I will say I'm on season 1, episode 8, and that was my Saturday, was Ozark. Chuck on Amazon Prime. Beauty and the Beast on Netflix. Somebody has kids. Amsterdam. All right. And if anybody just wants to unmute themselves and tell us about Little Fires. I watched my first 2 episodes. Oh my God. So if you want to unmute yourself just so we can see if your mute is working for you and your unmute.
Okay, yes. Little Fires had me on the edge of my seat, actually. I can't believe the writing that is involved with that show. It's like, oh wow, no she didn't, without me giving any spoilers. But if you're looking for excitement, definitely check out Little Fires Everywhere. It's really good. I keep thinking, I keep calling her Olivia Pope. What is her real name?
Kerry Washington. Kerry Washington. Yes. Love Kerry Washington.
Talented actress. And Reese Witherspoon. I mean, amazing. Good actress.
Great, great. So now we know that everybody's chat works and mics are working. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to our next slide just to keep us on track. So just to give you the purpose of this series, the purpose is really our students. Our students are our success. The way that we train them now, the way that we teach them now will determine the decisions that they make and their post-secondary outcomes. So just a little bit about my learning partners. Through coaching, training, developing curriculum resources and programs, we work with families, schools, districts, and community partners to basically pull the resources together and wrap them around the success of the students so that they can be successful throughout life and in school. So today's focus is to provide pocket-sized PD, which I like to say learning around a skill, strategy, or activity. We're going to give opportunity to collaborate with discussion and also share out other ideas. And at the end, we're going to survey participants to find out what are the needs to develop our next series. So here is the agenda. First, community agreements. In any online forum, we have to have some community agreements. And then we're going to get right into the learning sessions, and then the Unconference. You might have heard of a conference before. The Unconference is really that sharing out, asking questions, being willing to share, and then we're going to close. And then I have 2 bullets at the bottom just to, again, to reiterate that the Edcamp is recorded because our registrants are going to receive a follow-up email with a link to this recording. So here are our community agreements, and please feel free to add. But the first is to remember we're all learners. And second, to lean into discomfort. This time that we're teaching in right now is uncharted waters, it's unprecedented times, and so it can be uncomfortable. but the more we lean into that instead of resist it, we find solutions for it. And then last, but certainly not least, is to ask for what you need and offer what you can. We don't have all the answers, but it's okay, because we're going to ask each other. Great minds think alike, and one mind is better than, multiple minds is better than one. Getting kind of choked up right now. I don't know why. I'm speeding through it. So here are our learning partners for today. We have about 14 people on the call, and we have about 6 people who are going to share with us today. I am Dr. Alisha Hill. I'm your host, and Dr. Christina Edwards is my co-host. She's going to help moderate the chat box, so please feel free to make any questions or comments in the chat box. And we have Mattie Fisher, who is tuning in all the way from Abu Dhabi. So Mattie was actually one of my students, my first year teaching high school ever. So, and she's a teacher, so I'm so excited to hear from Mattie. And then we have Ms. Rebecca Fry, who is an educator in Norfolk Public Schools. We have Billy Cook, who is a former board member from Norfolk Public Schools and also a teacher, and also a retired military, colonel. Did I get that right? Yes, I got it right. Okay. And then we have Annette Alvarez, who is also an educator in California. She's going to talk to us about reading strategies. And we have Mr. Thomas, who's a math teacher in Fayette County. And we have Ms. Sharon Davidson Cook, friend from Norfolk, has been teaching for almost 30 years. Almost 30 years, but she's also an ELA drama teacher, civic leader with her husband Billy Cook as well. So we're excited to hear from them. And they've raised multiple kids of their own and outside of their family, and now they're helping to educate their grandkids. So I can't wait to hear from them. So just to get everybody ready to talking, I'll go first, so that I can make all the mistakes, and then you can come back and say, okay, let's not do that, all right? So our first strategy that I'm going to talk about today is Instagram. A lot of you probably have Instagram accounts, and you probably use Instagram Live. I'm pretty sure you tuned in to Teddy Riley versus Babyface, DJ Nice, and everybody else who has gone Instagram Live. But we can use that for live instruction, and that includes modeling learning for our students. You can model a read aloud, a think aloud on Instagram Live. You can also use it for peer-to-peer feedback. So if you have your students who are doing any oral presentations and you want their peers to give them feedback, they can write it in the comments. With Instagram Live, you're also able to interview students, you're able to interview guests. So you might invite a civic leader into your classroom and invite them to your Instagram Live where you're interviewing them, and kids also get to ask questions while you're interviewing. So a really great, cool way to use Instagram Live while you're teaching. Also, Instagram can be used for the DMs. It goes down in the DM where you can contact your hard to reach students. So you can use social media, especially when you know they're on it. So why not use it for them? I love Instagram for professional learning networks. I have found so many teachers, so many instructional coaches, people who I probably would have never met in life, but it's like being at a conference when you have common interests and you use those hashtags. You can also follow other people and they'll follow you, and you can also share ideas that way. So Instagram is a tool, a strategy, and you don't have to have too many skills. You already know how to use it. It's user-friendly. So I would suggest that you please try Instagram as a teaching tool. So that's my 5 minutes. It's 4:09. And are there any questions or comments? Okay, Annette, just unmute yourself. There you go.
I just wanted to share a really cool assignment that a colleague and a mentor used with Instagram, where this was for a high school English class, and they were reading Of Mice and Men. And she had groups of 3 they picked out a line from the chapter that was very evocative, that had some beautiful imagery. And then she sent them out onto the campus, and they posted on Instagram some image that, you know, I'm thinking it was Lenny's paw in the water, and somebody like put her hand in a puddle or something. And it was just a fun way for them to, again, be on a platform that they're familiar with, but also like inject some learning into it. So this is giving me a lot to think about.
Yay, yay. I love it. I love it. Okay. Well, now we are going to move along to the rest of the facilitators, and we're going to go in order. So our first facilitator, we have Miss Mattie Fisher. So Mattie, if you unmute your mic, then you can go ahead and take over the screen. I'll stop sharing.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Hello, everyone, again. Today, I wanted to speak about balance, and I needed to make sure that I have a focus, because there's, of course, so many avenues to go when it comes to balance. And so I decided to focus in when it comes to engagement and finding that balance with students. Of course, I'm here in Abu Dhabi, so I've been here now for 8 months. Previously, I was teaching in Leon County Schools in Tallahassee, Florida. And online and e-learning has been a big challenge here, because before the pandemic, before the shutdown, basically in this culture, they did not believe that online learning was actually like a thing. It wasn't taken seriously. It was like, well, are the kids actually learning? And it's more, I think, of a cultural thing. And so what I have found as far as finding balance is trying to engage the students is a very hard task, okay? So when I'm looking at engagement, I'm gonna focus in on 3 areas. The first is going to be prioritize, then compromise and apply. And so with students who are not familiar with what we say the new e-learning platform, and right now we don't know if this is going to be the same, of course, in fall, or if it's going to go back to normal. No one knows. So I have to find some type of midway to make myself, to keep myself sane, at the same time having some fun with it with the students. So there are some focus areas as far as prioritizing. So I still have to, this is an American curriculum school. They're all local students from the UAE, from Abu Dhabi, LA area. And I'm using still the Common Core standards. So when I'm prioritizing, the things I have to look at, of course, are the learning styles and administrative expectations. So here, when I talk about learning styles and relating to the standards and looking at administrative expectations, what am I going to be able to actually get done, like realistically? With students, they have the means for the technology, but not quite sure how to use it, for lack of better words, I guess. And then worrying about students responding to this new platform. And then also I'm worrying about evaluations as far as e-teaching. School is going to go on here until July 2nd is our last day. So this basically started in the middle of March, and there's a ways to go. So these are some items that I have to prioritize. All right, the standards, the students' learning styles, and then some expectation. Okay. So next, I'm going to take a look at having to compromise, because clearly I'm going to have to give some things up. And compromising, I've decided that I'm going to set a daily goal, because weekly goals are very hard to attach to and to stick with it. So for me, it's going to be a daily goal. Keeping in with the balance, I'm going to have self-care moments where I'm going to preserve positive energy. I now have a habit of recording happy moments. So if there is a breakthrough in the learning session, or even just personally with me, I'm gonna record it and I'm just gonna talk about it and save it on my phone. Going back, okay. So in the end, when it comes to the compromise, we have to look at the students. They're going to learn, okay? But also we have these realistic expectations, because let's face it, with e-learning, there are 3 items that we're all saying to ourselves. Normally, I wouldn't. Under the circumstances, I can't do this. And this may or may not be the gateway, like we don't know what's gonna happen in the future. So when it comes to compromise, while participating in the chat box, for example, I usually probably wouldn't give points for students raising their hand and answering a question. But this is new territory, so now I gotta get creative. Look, if you participate in this chat box, you're gonna get some points, and that's gonna motivate them a little more, especially for struggling students. All right, so then apply was my next piece. So these are some strategies for an e-learning platform as far as engagement is concerned. So using the chat box to keep students awake, because we have live sessions starting at 8:15. So usually, and I teach at an all boys school, this is grade 11 and 12. So what they do is they log in, they mute, and then they go to sleep. So making sure that they are staying awake by participating and using that chat box is helping me out a lot right now. Also, the platform that we use to deliver our lessons is through Microsoft Teams, and Microsoft Teams is really great. I love it. I can create surveys for my students using like guided reading questions for what we may be using, and these are second language learners. So there is just a lot of the access as far as I have to have these guided reading questions, otherwise they're not gonna get it, they're not gonna understand. What I wanna work on for the next month, one of my long-term goals is getting students comfortable with presenting. Using audio and video. There's this platform, Microsoft Sway, where it's kind of like a PowerPoint, but it's better as far as embedding videos and them using voice notes, which is important for second language learners. And then some concepts and ideas that you want to consider again, even though we're using these strategies and all trying our best, the engagement process, what does it look like? My administration, when we first came upon, we're going to online learning, they were just throwing ideas out. Okay, use this. Okay, do this. This is going to be due Tuesday. So we have to just, once again, go back, remember to prioritize and make some type of compromise for the end goal. Technology is not 100% available for everyone. So yes, there are very wealthy students here, but at the same time, what I'm learning slowly through this process is that there are students who don't have the technology. So coming up with ideas as far as just printing documents out and someone will deliver those to the students is an idea. And most students are also sharing laptops and computers, all right? And then of course, one example as far as combining the prioritize, compromise, and apply, creating something like a fact sheet about the coronavirus. So there was this video that I found using Docs Teach. I know that it was a reliable source. And then I'm also connecting my standards, so I'm making sure the priority is here and that it all fits together, okay? So that's what I have with engagement, prioritize, compromise, and apply, and that's gonna be the balance. Thank you. And here are some resources. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Are there any questions or comments for Mattie? I like how you pointed out that you wouldn't typically give credit for kids raising their hands to participate, but because this is unknown territory, that you encourage them by giving them those effort points and raising their hand and that participation. And I really like that, because some people would be, shy away from it and be like, oh, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm pretty sure, though, if you have kids who are just raising their hand with nothing to say, that they don't get any credit for that, right? So I just wanted to put that out there, that people aren't saying, oh, they give, I didn't want to go to that because they give A's for kids raising their hand. But I appreciate you doing that, because it's like having a Socratic seminar. You give kids points every time they say something in a Socratic seminar. So it would be the same thing. So I like that you pointed that out, and that you prioritize what to teach, because what gets taught is important, what the admin is asking for, and then what your students are already comfortable with. So those three big buckets, those categories, are really, really important when thinking about what you're going to teach and what you're not going to teach, or how you're going to teach it, or what you're going to use. So thank you for prioritizing that for us.
Thank you.
All right.
Dr. Hill, we have someone who wants to see Mattie's last screen, and if you all could screenshot it or take a picture of it for her resources.
Mattie, if you will you copy them and put them in the chat box so they can copy it?
Yes.
Click on it.
Okay.
Thank you. Anything else, Dr. Edwards, in the chat box?
Nope, that's it for now.
All right, thank you. So our next presenter is Miss Rebecca Fry, and I am hearing that Miss Fry is a high school English teacher, a high school teacher, and she is in inner city Norfolk, so lots of things right there. But she also is a mother of 5 and a military mom at that. So she's a teacher by profession, and she's a teacher by everyday life. So Ms. Fry, if you will.
Oh, thank you. I am in Norfolk Public Schools in the inner city. The only difference is I am a social studies teacher. I teach government, which, wow, there's so much right now on so many levels. So if I can't get engagement, that's a sad situation. But also I think what's unique in this situation is my students don't go to Norfolk public schools. They go to like some suburban schools. So just seeing the difference of availability of technology and how their teachers are handling it compared to our teachers it's been an interesting issue of equality to me, and that's a whole nother webinar, but it's definitely eye-opening. So my number one concern and my number one focus, I teach seniors. So as long as they're graduating, they don't care. So it's not like math where they're gonna need to build on for next year, or their 6th or 7th grade. So it's a different aspect as far as getting them there. So my first week of doing this, I had great lessons planned. I was ready to go, and 1 out of 130 students showed up. So I said, okay, we're gonna have to redo this. It's like your after school thing that you're ready to go and you've got this great thing and nobody shows up. So my strategies I'm gonna focus on are basically how to get the students there. And it was really neat that Mattie was saying, okay, usually I don't do this, or under these circumstances, I'm gonna have to do this. So under this, it's new circumstances. Because a lot of our students don't have parents that are making them do that, and they have all these other stressors going on. So my first one is to bother the heck out of the students. I'm the type of teacher that like grabs them in the hallway, like, I know you're working on this, or, I go to the coach and say, I know you're working on this. So we don't have that ability right now. So I'm using every platform that I can. So I do Zoom calls, but to get them there, I do Google Classroom. I do find them on Facebook. I text them if I have that number. I email them, do group emails. There are issues, because we're not supposed to, before, usually not under these circumstances, use social media to reach these students. But I think in these circumstances, we can all agree that that's sometimes the best way to get it, like you mentioned with Instagram. So I do. I try to reach them as many ways as possible. I've even found some parents that, like, when I comment to a student on Facebook, they comment back like, oh, I didn't know he missed that. So that's a really good way to, like, just bug them, just like your kids at the house, like, mom, mom, mom. You know, that's what I'm doing with the students. Number two, which you just mentioned, is what I'm trying to do is run it as a Socratic seminar. I'm an attorney in my previous life, so the most embarrassing thing is going into class, and that's how law school's taught, and you're supposed to know information, and if you don't know anything, it's like, it's horrible because all the other students are looking at you. So my main setup for my classes has been to give videos, to give essays, to do all of this stuff that they should be doing on their own, and then we meet, so that I'm not, like, wasting their time, you know, and they can do it on their own. Because my first lesson is I had a Zoom call, funny me, at this time that we had class, which was 9 a.m. and nobody showed up because it was too early. So what I did was gave them the things that they could do on their own. So then when we met at 1 o'clock, which was a better time for them, we could all just come together. So that worked a lot better. So I give all the learning resources that they're going to need and the actual teaching in YouTube videos, on Classroom, Google Classroom, things like that. And then when we meet as a class, we don't spend that much time. We just go over their essays and any questions that they may have. And then they call each other out, which is nice. Third, you may call it bribery. But at first I was saying, okay, if you show up for this, if you watch this, send me a picture of you watching it, you know, and I'd help them with their grades and things of that sort. But that got old really quickly for them when they found out all the grades might not matter. So I did a raffle this past week for a Chick-fil-A gift card for, I just had them all pick a number during our Zoom call, and it seems simple. But I figure, you know, the money I'm saving with not driving to school every day, I just put that in towards some gift cards, and they guessed numbers. And I had 75% of the students show up compared to like 25% before. So it was just a little thing, but it got them there. And also I've done like personal contacts with that. So like the kids that didn't show up for that, were kids I was sort of concerned about. So even if they weren't answering my calls, I used other students to reach out to them. You know, hey, are you doing okay? And things like that. And then all of a sudden, when you show you actually care, then they're going to show up and be there. So that's my last point, is don't stop connecting and be honest. Like, so I think, I believe Mattie was mentioning, like, be honest. This is so different from everything. And I have the convenience of being able to connect with them and saying, hey, my children are doing the same thing. Nobody knows the answers, you know, so let's all just be in this together and go forward and just keep connecting in that manner. So like I was saying, the main thing for me, the main strategy is use every platform you can to get them there. And then as soon as we can get them there, then we can really make sure the learning's going on.
I like it. Wow. You're doing quite a bit. Are there any questions and comments for Rebecca?
Oh, I have one more thing I forgot to mention.
Yes.
I was doing this with my own kids, is that we were doing like you mentioned, my husband's deployed, so we're getting very creative. So we did like a country a day in my house and like got dressed up and everything. So I've started that with Zoom calls just to get them like engaged. So this Wednesday coming up, I have a pool, so we're gonna have like Hawaiian day, you know, so then they go up and they can like have a lay on or whatever, you know, but then they're like thinking about it and then they get there and it makes them a little bit more fun for them.
I like it, like it, like it. I just wanted to point out a couple of things that you said in terms of, you said that you're giving incentives, gift cards for them participating and showing up, and the money you were spending on gas, that you can get those gift cards. What type of gift cards are you giving that you find that they're like, ooh, I gotta have that?
Chick-fil-A. Everybody loves Chick-fil-A.
Yes.
Yeah, I've been doing Chick-fil-A a lot because it's an easy way to get in and get out. So yeah.
Yeah, love Chick-fil-A. They can get them a nice little meal for $7. Yep. So thank you so much. So now, if you have any comments for any of the facilitators, please put it in the chat box. Dr. Edwards is manning that chat box, so she'll be able to answer, or we'll be able to bring the conversation back up. So if you think about something, please feel free to use that chat box. So our next presenter is Mr. Billy Cook. And again, he is an educator, a civic leader, and also he has been in the military. So I would like for him to go ahead and get started and tell us about the great things you're doing. Well, actually, I think Billy and Sharon are going to go together. Yes. So they're going to do their presentation together. So that's Billy and Sharon Cook.
Okay, so, all right, we're going to share our screen first. So good afternoon, everybody.
Hi, everyone. You got to hit the screen.
All right, so here we go.
And then, no, right there. And then share. So he's doing this. I've been doing the screen sharing thing with my students because I use Google Classroom, and but it has been a learning experience for me as well. What we want to talk about is just like basically organizing your time for yourselves as teachers or educators, but also in organizing how you approach teaching, because the one thing that I've learned through experience, through trial and error, is that you cannot teach online in the same way that you teach in a classroom, in a traditional classroom setting. It just doesn't work out. So what I mean by that too is that you can't expect every day you're meeting, like if you're on block schedule, okay? You're trying to meet with your kids 3 times a week or what have you, and then you're doing like, okay, we're gonna start with the warm up, then we're gonna do our lecture in our guided practice, and now we're gonna do the independent practice, and now we're gonna do the exit ticket or whatever. It doesn't work in the same way. So you've got to be open to being flexible, and hopefully you are working with administrators who understand the importance of that flexibility. And you've just got to do things just a bit differently. But first, we want to just really quickly talk about balancing your day as a teacher, because for a lot of us working at home during this time, it's difficult because you've got your kids at home, and we have our grandchild that we're helping to raise and help to educate. So we've got her here. We're trying to make sure that she gets on the platform that her preschool has required for their students. And so while we're trying to assist her, then there's also your home life, your cooking. Oh my gosh, how many of you have been having to cook every day, 3 times a day, what have you? And so it's trying to juggle and maintain all of that stuff. So one of the important things is to make sure that you establish some guidelines for yourself or some boundaries for yourself, set up a schedule, and make sure that you give yourself some grace, because you don't always necessarily hit that schedule perfectly every time, but just making sure that you have allotted time for different things that you need to do. And in the same vein, you're allotting time for what you're expecting your students to accomplish, because just like you're trying to balance and figure this thing out, they're trying to do the same thing. You want to add something to that?
And so when we start talking about the importance of routine, I will tell you a quote that I have from the military. As a young officer, I think I said to one of my bosses, "Hey, sir, I don't have enough time." And he says, "You got all the time there is." Think about that. And so you have to manage that. In order to manage that, you need to be deliberate. You need to be intentional. I also sell real estate, right? And so they talk about you really taking advantage of managing your time to meet your goals. And so that's going to be important, as Mattie talked about, having those goals and those things like that. So I also throw in here the challenge of mind, body, and soul. You got to do something to challenge and to exercise and to invigorate all of those. Because if we are not doing that, then we're no good for our teachers. Or for our students. And so That's going to be important. And then lastly, as Mattie also talked about, is finding that balance to your instructional routine, being flexible and agile so that you can adjust to this new normal. So those are the things in terms of importance of routine.
Right. And so one of the things that I do, and when I meet with my students, I use Zoom to meet with them, but I also use Google Classroom. I always send out a 101 reminder. I don't know if you all are familiar with that application, but I remind them, okay, we're going to meet on Tuesdays. We only meet, I have seniors too. We meet on Tuesdays and Thursdays or Fridays. And so I give them the instruction on that Thursday, and then I tell them what the activity is. And then on Friday, when we meet again, or on Thursday when we meet again, we go over it. But I chunk the lessons. I don't try to give them too many things because they become overwhelmed. And then sometimes, of course, they're going to drop out. Some of the platform, and when you're to instruct, I'm looking at the time, when you're instructing, oh my gosh, when you're instructing, in order to maintain engagement too, I use a lot of videos. I embed videos in that instructional time. One of the things I'm going to start using is a program called Flipgrid. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that, where you share video and the students can respond also with video. Since we're living in this video age anyway. There's also Padlet, and Padlet is an online bulletin board where you can post and display information, videos, pictures, topics, things like that. I use New York Times. The New York Times has instructional material. There are articles, current event articles with text dependent, because I teach English. So they have text dependent questions with the articles, extended activities that keep the students engaged in what's going on in the world, give them real life scenarios to work with. What? Okay, I know I can't tell it all. I'm sorry.
You are absolutely fine. You are fine. I mean, you named a lot of teaching tools that have been extremely helpful. And even you guys reiterating the need for balance between work life and home life, because that's most important. It's like putting on your oxygen mask. You got to take care of you before you take care of someone else.
Right.
Revived and re-energized to do that. But you mentioned you use a lot of videos. So can you talk a little bit about where you find those videos that you're using? I love that you said that your students can respond in video. And I think that's a great strategy, especially for elementary and special ed students, or our students who struggle with writing, to be able to respond orally. So Flipgrid, I know, is what they can use to respond with their own videos. But if you will, where do you find your videos to provide instruction?
Of course, YouTube
Yes.
is my top place that I go to, of course. Just like I just shared a couple of YouTube videos for my AP literature kids in preparing them for the AP exam. I've even created in one of, when my students have questions about the reading, like we just finished reading Handmaid's Tale, and I assigned certain text-dependent questions along with it. And when they have questions about the questions, I respond to them via video. It's my first time ever creating a video on YouTube. So I was just like, oh my gosh, I didn't know it took so long to upload a video. Yeah. So the first go around, I just had to chunk it and answer one question. Take it one question at a time. So yeah, most of the things that I pull are from YouTube, or me creating my own thing.
I love it. I love it. And you also mentioned Remind 101. I know even for me working, we have so many meetings throughout the day, and it's easy to miss a meeting. But me and my team, we email each other, or we'll text each other and say, hey, don't forget meeting at 1 o'clock. Just so that we're holding each other up and we're supporting each other. So I like that you mentioned Remind 101, which I think teachers can use with each other to remind each other, hey, we got that collaborative meeting, but also with their students. Don't forget, we have Thursday live instruction. Get on, you know, because I mean, we are trying to juggle a lot of things, and we talk about us having our own kids, but students have younger siblings. Students have jobs that they like, working at the grocery stores that they may be going to. So life is still happening for them. So just allowing people grace and holding them up, but making it easier for yourself and doing
Well,
it.
that's where, let me just make the point about the last bullet here. That's where the cross communication and I didn't put that word there, but it should have been cross coordination and cross communication. Because as Sharon was talking the other day, you imagine you got one student that has six teachers. And so that student now has to manage time. And so when you can communicate and say to the student, okay, I have Thursday at 2:00. Does that work for you?
Mm-hmm.
And then, so that's part of this challenge that we have going on, because everybody's got demands on them now.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's going to take that organization, that extra deliberate and intentional effort to get this thing right, where, you know, we're managing this situation now.
Yeah, because Rebecca Fry and I work in the same school. And so one day when I had a student who missed my Zoom class. And so he texted me and said, I missed class because I was in government. I was like, oh, okay. And so I did a one-on-one with that student. Another student texted and said, hey, I wasn't there because I had math. So I think in moving forward with this, because like we said, we don't know what the fall is going to look like, and being proactive, we're going to have to find a way to coordinate with teachers, you know, just like we do in terms of scheduling, how we're going to meet with students so that they're not having to give up one instructional time for another. You feel what I'm saying?
Yep. So one thing that I do in my day job is since we've been in this setting, my team and I have been holding collaborative meetings for assistant principals. And one of the assistant principals shared with the group last week that what they've done is they did set up some norms or a schedule. So 4-block schedule. So first and second block have class. Live instruction happens in the morning on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then in the afternoon, instruction happens for third and fourth block. And then the students have Flex Friday, where if they need any makeup, then the teacher has office hours, then they can call the teacher during a certain period of hours. But again, it's set up so that there is some structure to, I know my first and second block are going to happen in the morning, same time as my classes would have happened, and that's when my teacher is available. That's when my teacher is doing live instruction. So it really didn't take any outside planning other than the administrator saying, we're going to carry on, but live instruction won't be every day. It'll be Tuesday, Thursday for these classes, Monday, Wednesday for those classes, but everybody has Flex Friday, which means no live instruction, but you're available during those office hours where you would have had class anyway. So if you have a planning period, you take your break, whatever it is that you need to do, but your schedule remained the same, which I thought was pretty cool that they continued that, but they set the norm up in the beginning.
I like that, I really do. And please make sure too, teachers, that you're doing check-ins with your kids, like not just about the instructional stuff, but just how are y'all doing? How are you feeling? How are you dealing with all of this? Everybody okay? Everybody safe? You know, make sure that you're touching base with them with regard to that. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you so much. We have some comments, questions, I think, in the chat box down there, and we'll revisit that when we come back. Time now is 4:44. I'd like to do a time check. So we're going, our next facilitator is Annette Alvarez. And Annette, are you going to share your screen?
She needs to unmute herself.
I'll unmute her. Hey, you're unmuted now. Do you need to share your screen?
Yeah, I'm going to be sharing my screen.
Okay. So Annette also worked with Sharon and I when I worked for Norfolk about 7-8 years ago, but she was also a literacy teacher, but now she's out in California and she is working with Reading Intervention Program, and she is going to tell us all about it.
Yeah, so this is a resource that I use. Can you guys see the screen?
Yep.
All right, so I've been using this for years now. For 3 years, I was working at a charter high school that was a one-to-one. So all of our students had laptops. We didn't have textbooks or anything, and so I had to get really creative about how I was going to get them access to the text that they were going to use. And so I came across this fantastic resource called CommonLit. And I only got 5 minutes, so I'm just gonna like run through it really quick. This is a resource that you can use to print out PDFs. So like in the classroom, if I ever had a student going on an extended vacation or they needed homework or something like that, I could print the resources out for them. But what's really useful now is the ability to have them complete these assignments online. So I'm just going to quickly show you. So this is the website. It's commonlit.org. They on the bottom of all of their screens, they have, so down here, they've got a lot of information on how to use their resources. There's like video trainings, and also if you're curious to know how they're funded and stuff like that, that's all at the bottom. But I wanted to show you guys first the library, and then I'm gonna show you how I use it to track my students' progress in their reading goals. So here in their library, you can see that they've got featured content, which is what we're looking at here. They were very quick to turn around COVID-specific resources. They've got high interest high school texts and favorite short stories. So this is their featured content that they pulled together. You can view all of their texts. They also have units of study. I know that a lot of English teachers have been using this, but they do also have a lot of social science and science texts on here that students can use. The texts are available from 3rd grade all the way down to 12th. And so these are the different units that they've put together. So I'm gonna go to the 9th grade thematic unit on education. And they've done a really nice job of just kind of putting together a unit plan similar to what we might do when we're putting together the unit. And so this has really been a lifesaver for those teachers that are just moving on to the online platform. You can also just browse by book. I use this all the time, especially if I'm teaching a book for the first time, and I want to have some text sets around it. So for example, I'll just pull up Beloved. And what I like about this is it not only pulls up the text that they have in the library around it, but I absolutely love when and how to pair. It just really helps me plan my unit and understand how am I going to use this text in connection with the novel that we're reading. And so I might pull some of these questions down here into a group discussion or a short answer synthesis. So I love how they pull these together, and you can see that they have just a ton of books on here. You can also search by genre, by grade level. You can pull up text by literary device. So if you know that you're focusing specifically on logos, it's got all of the text that line up there. And then you can further filter. So I know I'm not going to be using any of these younger texts, but I might want to use the logos texts for my 9th graders. And then once you pull up search results, it lets you continue to pare it down by theme or by genre. So the library search is really, really powerful. They just started including Spanish texts. So yeah, so this is the library and how I would sort through it. I'm gonna open up a text now so that you can see what it looks like. So if I assign this text, I want my students to read this text, I can either download the PDF, and so this makes it print friendly. If I want to use this in my classroom, I just have to print it out this way and run off and make my copies. It's got the questions, which I'll go through in a second, but that comes up in the packet, as well as discussion questions. So this is what the PDF looks like. But if, thankfully, I had my students using this resource in my classroom before we were sheltering in place. And so they've already signed up. I already have all my students signed up in my classes here. And so what I'm able to do is assign the text. And there's a lot of great features that the site offers if the students are reading it online. So, oh, but I'm going to interrupt myself. This little take a tour button, whenever you see this as an educator and you're trying to figure something out, they do a really nice job of providing training for teachers through these take a tour and little videos that they have. So they make it really easy to like use the site. My students can have the text read aloud to them here. The text can be translated. There is like a ton of languages that it can be translated to. And then they also have this new annotation feature. So I wish that they would just label it annotation, because right now it just says new and it's not necessarily clear what it is, but that's what's going on here. So that allows students, when the annotation is selected, if my annotation, so here they've got like, as you read, identify how King responds to the clergyman, how he challenges their argument. That might be my annotation assignment. And so I'll have my students, you know, they can highlight the text here, they can annotate the text. And so if annotation skills is something that you're working on, helping them like engage with the text a little bit more, they have this new annotation feature. One of the things that I particularly like about having my students read these online is I work with highly motivated students who have learned how to game the system, and they are using their time as efficiently as possible. And so that doesn't always yield good reading habits. So if I give them the assessment questions, which are these guys right here, if I give them the packet with these assessment questions, you already know what the kids are going to do. They're going to read the question, and then they're going to go into the text and look for the answer, but they're not actually going to read the text. So what CommonLit has done is they use these guided questions that you can turn on for students. And what ends up happening is there's 9 guiding questions throughout the text. It will not let you proceed to the second guiding question until you've answered the first one correctly. But the best thing about it is, here is our first guided question right here. This whole text down here for my student, if I've turned on guided questions, is blurred out. So they can't see the assessment questions, and they can't even see the rest of the text until they're able to answer which of the following King uses to defend his presence. So that's been a really powerful way of instilling good reading habits in my students. And then so after they've answered all the guided reading questions, they go through the assessment questions. You can see that CommonLit has broken out their questions by reading standard. And I'll show you when we get into the data why that's so powerful. And so they'll go through, they're very common core questions, I will admit. And I'll also admit that I have found times where like I'm reading through the questions and the answers and I'm like, I don't know that I would have necessarily answered it in this way. So I would definitely recommend like reading through the questions and just making sure that you know what it is that you're assigning. But so the assessment questions are grouped by standard, and then they also have these discussion questions that I might use you know, during like a post reading. Maybe I'll have them get in groups or something, and these are just kind of like more open answer questions. More function.
Annette,
I'm off.
you
I'm sorry.
so much. Yes, like we're 10 minutes in, but this is a great tool. And based on the chat box, I see a lot of people use it. Some people are like, "Oh, I didn't know that." So you're doing a really, really great job. But I do want to save time for Mr. Thomas.
Got it.
Within the hour, and we can stay back if people are like, "Hey, I want to know about this data part."
Great
Are you
idea.
okay with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, great. So
Thank you.
please continue to put your questions and comments in the chat box for Annette, and then I don't know if Mr. Thomas has to jump off, but I do want him to be able to present within this hour. And then if we need 10 minutes or so after 5, then we'll take that, okay? All right.
Are you ready for me?
Yes, are you sharing your screen?
I am. I'm gonna talk for a minute, but I'm gonna share a couple of different activities. First
Okay.
of all, good afternoon. My name is Allison Thomas. I'm a 6th grade math teacher in Fayette County, Bennett's Mill Middle School. And I'm gonna give you a bit of a disclaimer first. I have kids at home just like many of you, but I have a 10 and 11-year-old. My 11-year-old son will be in middle school next year. And he's always made all A's. He's always made 4s on the milestones, been the model student, but he's struggling at home with the virtual learning. So I would often ask him, son, what's the problem? What's going on? He said, Dad, I'm just looking at the screen. I'm just answering questions. So I asked him, what could I do since he's so close to my age group? He wants to make it fun. And there's no reason why if you're at home that it can't be fun and it can't be engaging. So I use the kind of approach like the sandwich type approach, where we're gonna have some fun. We're gonna do a little live learning, a little assessment. Then we're gonna have some fun again at the end. So that means you gotta stay through the whole call, through the whole lesson to get to the fun. And I don't know if many of you are sports fan, but when I was in the classroom, have you ever heard of like the turnover belt when somebody do something good on defense or something like that? So I teach math. So instead of the turnover belt, we do something called the calculator challenge. So I'm going to share a couple of activities to kind of get them engaged. It won't let me share. I think somebody need to stop sharing their part.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry about that.
Okay. So this is something that can get not only the kids involved, get the parents involved, because we want to create that engagement. And it's just something just this simple right here. Some brain teasers. Y'all are familiar with this. Some Rebus puzzles. So, I like to start my lessons off, with kind of a brain teaser, a Rebus. They can challenge their parents. They can challenge their older siblings. It kind of get their brain churning. And then again, they're responding to me in the chat. So whoever win, I can't physically give them the belt now, but they're logging on to be engaged because, at 6th, 7th, 8th graders, they're very competitive. So they like to win. They like to be on top. So we can walk through this. We can talk about it. And then whoever win, they're crowned the calculated challenge. So if I was in school, they would actually walk around with a belt. But I've done like the gift card, a Chick-fil-A gift card, sent it to them in the mail. Then, that's one option to get the brains churning, like a Rebus puzzle. They can challenge their parents, older siblings. Then I do something like this right here, where again, a kind of a puzzle to get them to thinking. We can talk through it. We can walk through it together. See what their thought process is. This is all before I've started teaching. So this, it's going to be a different type of puzzle each day. And, once we walk through it, hey, how are you coming up with this number? What was your thought process around that? So it doesn't necessarily have to be math. These can like some puzzles, some Rebus puzzles, some brain teasers, just to get them engaged, offer some type of reward, so have you. Then, so now I've done the sandwich approach. That was my bread. So now I want to get into meat. I'm going to get into the actual teaching, the live teaching. I do all my teaching on Zoom. But the way I teach and have them respond is through Flipgrid. I know somebody mentioned Flipgrid earlier. I love Flipgrid. Flipgrid is awesome. So, whatever the topic we're, just for example, last week we were doing, ratios, anything like that. So you can have something like a ratio basketball activity where, can you all see that? No?
No, you stopped sharing.
Okay, let me see. What I was trying to share you all, no, it won't come up right there. Just like a ratio, oh, here it is, ratio basketball. So again, my standard was ratio basketball, but again, this is getting them engaged and they're having fun while learning at the same time. So they got a ratio activity basketball game where they can challenge their siblings, their parents, shooting paper in the basket. If they got a live basketball court, they can go out there and actually play basketball. But see, while they think they're having fun, they're learning too, because they got to show me what they missed and how many shots they made. So they're creating a ratio table, they're creating a ratio chart, sending that through Flipgrid. Also last week, we was doing measurements. So I had them to copy a sample recipe and then either double it or divide it in half. So again, these are some activity they can do without the computer, because a lot of our students may not have the assets, have the technology. This stuff you can do without the technology and you're still learning, you're still engaged, you're still having fun. So whatever the activity is, so, I've done the live demonstration. The assessment piece would be them doing the actual ratio basketball, submitting it via Flipgrid. So now they've had some fun. They've saw me model the lesson or introduce the lesson or review or answer any question they have. They've practiced and submitted it with Flipgrid. The next thing, you want to end with some fun. So I end again with, this has been my favorite so far, is just math around the room. It's just a straight scavenger hunt game. So, you go around, you can use that with any subject, with any area. You can go around, hey, go find me a pencil, and you just see everybody running around trying to find a pencil. Hey, go find me a rectangular prism. Still incorporating that math, but they're going around showing me what a rectangular prism is. Model for me a percent. So, they go into milk carton. So they're having fun with it. They're engaged. They're still learning. But in order for them to get to the math around the room or any other game we're going to play, they had to start off with the fun first. Then we did the live lesson, the feedback. So that was the meat. The cheese would be them modeling on Flipgrid. And then we're going to end it with some fun. Brain teaser. And then I'm not sure if you all have not, heard of this new platform. It's called GimKit. I'm not sure how new it is, but it's similar to quizzes, Kahoot, those things. But the difference with this is students actually have to use strategies to play this game. So they answer the questions right, they get money, they can freeze out their opponent, they can subtract money for them, they can team up with another teammate to take down the top person. So we'll play GimKit, towards the end. But in order to get through that, we're gonna have some fun, we're gonna have a little meat, we're gonna have some cheese on, and we're gonna close it with some fun again. So those are some of the things that I've done while at home to try to keep them engaged, try to assess them, still have fun, and still cover the standards and the necessary things that we need to cover.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. And I think the big thing that I hear you saying is engagement. And I think you have that down to a T with our engagement. I also heard someone say that you have to think, it was the cooks, that you have to change the way you teach. And I will also say change the activities you do. And when you're planning for students and activities, think about that one student who didn't do much in the classroom, because whatever assignment you give, the students who did in the classroom, they're doing it now. It's the students who were iffy in the classroom. Those are the ones who you want to target when you're teaching and when you're creating lessons. So thank you for those engagement strategies. I'm not strong in math, but so I can use it. So yes, and I'll be the last one to go. And basically you all have said everything that I had. So I'm piggybacking off of everything you all said. So let me share my screen. And the name of mine is, are you all able to see this now? Oh. Are you all able to see? Okay, good. All right, so boredom. Oh goodness, I can't move. Let me move this out of the way. Escaping boredom and online learning. I make sure I make it short and sweet, because hopefully it's something that you can take back and utilize tomorrow if you wanted to. So I'm giving you 4 quick tips that you can utilize. Number 1, create assignments that will make students want to do. Just like I just said, make sure you are aiming assignments towards those students, those iffy students. Whenever I'm planning, I'm not planning for the ones who are going to do. I'm trying to think of my one student. I have several in mind that I want to make sure that whatever I'm creating, they'll do it. For example, PBL project is a great tool to use, problem-based projects. Recently, students had to do, they were the creative directors of a comic book, and they had to create the next villain or comic hero. And students had to first read an article, and they were so into it. They saw a video. Students had to follow guidelines, and students just couldn't just create something. They had to really follow the guidelines. And at the end, they had a visual. Some students decided to sketch. Some students decided to dress up or dress their poor baby brothers and sisters and the poor dog. I saw pictures and videos of dogs dressed in their superhero. So it was a creative way to get them engaged. Also, show a movie. Tuck Everlasting is a novel that students read in class and I get a chance to read it or look at the movie. But students had a chance to watch a movie at home. And usually in class, they would have a compare contrast sheet where they would have to, compare the book and the video. But this time, students were able to become movie critics, where they had to videotape themselves recommending the book or what rate would you give this book or movie, 3 stars, 4 stars. So they were very creative in their work, and there was more buy-in. Also, Esperanza Rising is a book that they're reading right now. And instead of giving them a chapter and then you answer questions, have them interview someone who you know that is an immigrant or someone in your household. Asks about their childhood and kind of capture their attention that way. Number 2, social closeness. I know we're so used to social distancing. However, with social closeness, I want to say someone said this, but you said just log in and just let them talk. Let them they haven't seen each other, except for when they log in and it's instruction. But we have a such thing as instructional break at my particular school, where it's 10 minutes of no technology, nothing. Kids are outside running around. It's just a recess. So have a type of a recess online where students are only talking and playing, whether you're doing something like GimKit, whether you're doing show and tell. They may want to show their dog and say, this is my dog, and have them, just buy in with the students. Something else, 3 is visuals, graphics, video games, and video clips. I know you all said, what does this have to do with anything? This hamburger has absolutely, positively nothing to do with my presentation, but it captures their attention. Even for this video, if I'm talking, I may just stop and say, what do you all think is going on in this video? So I could be talking ELA or CommonLit, because I love CommonLit, by the way. So I can be talking about CommonLit, giving them their directions, and I just jump to what's going on in this picture. And so everybody wants to jump in as well. Also, a scavenger hunt. I think someone said that as well. Oh, here is the GimKit and even the Pinterest. If you like the videos, I can send this to you, but there's a lot of videos of just interesting things. But for the scavenger hunt, because students in the past, they were not joining in on the live sessions, what I decided to do is, since my class starts at 9 o'clock and some students are not doing it at all, so I started doing a scavenger hunt, let's say at 9:02, where I may just say, go find something in your house that is smooth, and they have to go run. Mr. Thomas said that they have to go run and come back. So I want to give you all here a lot of examples of some scavenger hunts for outdoors. Find something that's red, find an animal log, find something that tastes sour. So these are things that you can just stop in the middle of a lesson and say, find me something. Students are running and they're coming back. So, all right, that's it. I want to make it short and sweet. So once again, thank you. My name is Dr. Christina Edwards, and you can find me, I Coach Teachers, LLC, on Instagram, iCoachTeachers.com, on Twitter or YouTube. And I will stop sharing. And also, Dr. Hill, we had 2 people who wanted to share some ideas that they're doing at home right now with their class or with their children.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one was Rachel, and she had some good ideas. So Rachel, if you wanted to go ahead and talk.
All right.
Second. Hey, Rachel, if you hold
Hi.
on just a second,
Okay.
because we're about to move to that part. But first, before we do, I really want to thank all of the lead learning partners or the facilitators today for sharing. So please, if you will, here's a virtual round of applause for everybody that shared and even participated in the comment box. But this next portion, and this is after our hour, the time now is 5:10, so we'll stay on for like another 10 minutes of sharing out. The next portion is what we call the Unconference. And in this Unconference, I want to just be sure that everybody's clear on, if you need help, ask for it during this time. If you have something to offer it during this time. So I'm so glad that Rachel now is getting ready to offer some things, but just keeping in the mindset that, back to our community agreement, is that we're all learners and we're leaning into discomfort, and also that if we have something to offer, then we are going to share it. If we have a question to ask, please ask it. But this is the time to set aside any criticism, fear, and even judgment. But we're going to embrace this process, and we're going to have some fun while doing it. So Rachel, I'm so glad that you are ready to share. Any tips, strategies, or resources that you use and you find are successful, or if you have a question. So thanks for setting us off and doing this.
All right. Well, I teach in DeKalb. I teach first grade. So, of course, the area I teach in, the technology is very limited. So we have to think outside the box. We use programs that DeKalb County sets up called Microsoft Teams. So if children are struggling and the parents are struggling, I'm able to have an online class with them and monitor their learning. We use programs like iExcel and Epic Books and ReadWorks. These are some really great programs that we can monitor with their math and their reading as well. So that's some things I use. I also communicate with my parents through email, and I provide them with all of the lessons and the worksheets if they need them, so that if they can't get online, they have the worksheets right there at their fingertips. And then I tell them always that they are welcome to write it down on a piece of paper and then just take a picture of it and then send it to me, either through Class Dojo, Verge, or email me. So, and because of the calendar that I created of activities for my families, the principal and assistant principal liked it so much that they are now using it for the whole school. So on Mondays, we do math and science, and we break it up so that parents don't seem overwhelmed and trying to do all the subjects every day. So we break it up. And then on Tuesdays, all the specialists has their lessons. On Wednesdays, we do reading, ELA, social studies. And then on Thursdays and Fridays are makeup days. And I tell them I'm always monitoring them in case they need my help. And I also try to provide one-on-one reading groups for kids that might not be able to come throughout in the mornings, but I can work with them in the afternoons when their parents get home from work. So that's what I use.
Love it. You brought out 2 points there, which is scheduling your days by subject so that we can still avoid that conflict, and especially with elementary kids, and not overwhelming the parents who are helping the elementary kids with it, but focusing on a subject or 2 each day. And I just have one question for you. How are you conducting your one-on-one reading groups? What platform are you using? How are you doing that?
Microsoft Teams. That's the program that the county prefers us to use. It's safe, and so it's kind of like Zoom, but it's it doesn't get hacked in. So
right,
that's a big point right there.
And that's for your email system. Like some people have Outlook, but you probably have Microsoft 360.
Right, we do. We have the Office 365, where Microsoft Teams is a part of that.
Good. Thank you so much for sharing, Rachel. Any questions or comments for Rachel? Does anybody else want to share? I think Vanessa, or who did you have, Dr. Edwards?
Deidre wanted to share as well.
Okay, Deidre, and then Miss Vanessa.
Hi, everybody. I'm Deidre. My position is I'm a substitute teacher and also a parent, and this was amazing.
Yay!
Well, and 2 things. I have a first grader, 7th and 8th grader, and the first grader, what I do at home, I do study island. I make them do it for an hour, and they have to do 30 minutes of Duolingo. Now, here's the reason why I make, especially the middle school students, do study island. I think they attend school in Fayette County, and I won't say the school, but their teachers have tapped out. And every day it was, oh, we don't have anything. Oh, I'm finished. And yet I'm getting emails, not many Zoom meetings. So I said, okay, let me see how I can bridge the gap. So I know if I do study island, I can monitor how long they've been on, what they're learning. And I think this is so good because I didn't really know about CommonLit. So they're doing their assignments. They're doing well. My first grader is on Seesaw. So she's very much engaged, but I think this is awesome. I try my best to get them engaged, but it's hard as a parent when the teachers have tapped out. So it's leaving me, okay, what are you doing? Communicate with your teacher. Well, we finished. They're always finished with their word. They don't, that's not due. And I'm like, no, I know you all have things to do. So my thing is I have to have organization. You get up, we're going to the table. All of us are going to do our work. Let me see your laptop. Let me read what is due. Let me read what the teacher's instructions are, because I know this is new for teachers, but it's also new for parents, and I want to make sure I do my part as a parent. So I think this right here was totally awesome, and I want to do my part to help out the teachers, but I don't want my children to lag behind. So I just feel like if I can get them on, I think you all said GimKit, CommonLit, things like that. I mean, and I think Mr. Thomas had some things that he had. And the other thing I'm noticing is that even though they're middle school students, they're kids. So what you think is juvenile, I mean, we had categories the other day, or I'll say if they're sitting at the table, I know this is so juvenile, I'll say, let me see which one of my students, or I call them my coworkers, are doing what they're supposed to be doing. And I'll go downstairs with gummies, and you will be surprised how excited they are. Look, I'm on task, because they're still children. So I think what Mr. Thomas said, I want to try those as well to get them engaged, because I have to remind them, you're still in school. From 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock, whatever time, I try to make sure they get up early. I try to keep everything organized. So I really do appreciate all of you educators, because as a sub, I kind of see some characteristics how students are at school, but then as a parent, it's like, man, these teachers are awesome. I have so much respect for you all. I don't want to be a teacher. I'll stay being a sub, but you all are awesome. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
And I see we had Terry who posed a question. What are some resources for pre-K students? And some people are writing some things, New ZLA, and they have a free version. I'm not sure if there is a free version of CommonLit. I'm not sure how far it goes, but freckle.com, pre-K, Flipgrid, any other suggestions? I know if you go to Google and you can type in some math work or science experiments, you will pull up a whole bunch. So thank you for your comment, and keep going, because we don't know how long, if it's going to keep going to August, whatever it is, keep doing what you're doing, because we don't want that learning loss gap to be there. So keep filling in, and thank you.
Yes, I agree. I think Ms. Vanessa wants to share, and then we're going to come back to that question and just share out some resources, especially for pre-K after that.
Thank you so much. I'm Vanessa Fortenberry, and I work in DeKalb County School System as a teacher librarian. Actually, Rachel and I work together in the same school. I'm also a writer and author of Christian children's books. And so I just wanted to briefly talk about spiritual wellness, because that has been the highlight of my life for quite some time now. However, when COVID-19 came about, it sort of shook me a little bit. It shook my spiritual wellness to a certain degree. And for a couple of weeks, maybe the first 2-3 weeks that we were sheltering in place, I was a little bit lost. I was overwhelmed. We have our teachers communicate by GroupMe, and they were excited about bringing certain websites and databases to sharing it with each other. My ed media colleagues were sharing information as well, and I'm just trying to stay afloat at this particular time. And so I had to go back to routine, and I noticed, I think Sharon and Billy Cook spoke about that. And I had to get back to my routine. I had to get back to my spiritual wellness, playing my music, my reading. I love writing poetry, getting back to writing, my praying. You know, even my prayer life had kind of gotten a little bit off target. And so, you know, even with me as an adult, this happening to me, I can imagine how it could affect other children. And I remember reading an article about a teacher somewhere whose own daughter thought that she had done something wrong as a result of being sheltering in place. And so her, the teacher, the mother, had to carry her daughter to the neighborhood, you know, to see some of the other students at a distance, to, you know, to emphasize to her that, no, you did not do anything wrong. So our children, I know, have been shaken as well. And I do love all of the different activities that have been shared this afternoon. And I want to use some of those to help my teachers that I work with. Billy mistakenly said earlier that he was of no good to his teachers, but truthfully, I think initially I was of no good to the teachers at my school, but I'm getting back on target now, and I'm so thankful. And they're going to see how I have already started contributing. And also, one of the teachers invited me on our Microsoft Teams with her class as they share acrostic poems. And I was able to share a poem that I had written about the library. So that was a good thing also for me to see the kids' faces. And it helped me as I am regrouping to regain my spiritual wellness. So thank you so very much for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you, really, because part of social and emotional, we're really talking to the spirit whenever we're talking about social and emotional learning anyway. And staying grounded and staying in the right mindset or mind space, just being mindful and thoughtful of how we're approaching our students, but also how we're approaching and treating ourselves. So again, putting that oxygen mask on for us first. So taking care of that spiritual self is really important. I do want to continue the conversation. There was a question that was about what resources are out there for pre-K. I'll share that one of the principals shared with me that her teacher was using Flipgrid for pre-K students and kindergarten students because students, they're not able to write, but they're able to speak. And so they would respond in video time and she would give them immediate feedback. The teacher would give them immediate feedback. So if you're trying to engage your kids online that way, then you could. I also wanted to share my resource on my learning partners that I had up for you guys. So if you click resources, you'll see student support, teacher support, leader, and staff. But under here, there's homework help. So I don't know if you guys knew, but there's also a free tutoring service that's out there right now. Khan Academy is always good. But for learning games for pre-K and kindergarten where they're just learning sight words, I find that if you click on this sight word games, you can make these games with cards, paper, whatever, and there are also some that are interactive. So these are some great resources to use with your pre-K students. Can you guys see that screen? Can you see where it says resources? Are you able to see it now?
Yes.
Okay, so if you were to click on the sight words right here, you'll be able to see, I mean, it's several games, but around that age, pre-K and kindergarten, they're really trying to learn letter sight recognition, sound recognition, and if you have some advanced pre-K kindergarten students, then they might be ready to take that on. I think also a good thing to introduce to them at this time is Duolingo. I heard that mentioned earlier as well. But this is a site that teaches them how to speak Spanish. and it's free. So all of the sites that are up here are free, but this is just a resource for you as well. And then in the comments, some people put Scholastic, I think education.com, but take a look at that chat box over in the comments. Or are there any more questions or comments? Okay. All right, so right now we're going to go ahead and get ready to close out then. Thank you again for all of the feedback. I hope that we can stay connected. My Instagram is I am Dr. Ruth. I do follow back, so please let's connect there. Also, Dr. Edwards, who is the co-host, hers is I Coach Teachers, LLC. And then Miss Mattie Fisher, who's all the way over in Abu Dhabi, is @_Miss Fisher_. And then Sharon Cook is Sharon65. And I want to give a shout out, if you are in the Norfolk area or know anybody in the Norfolk area, Billy Cook is running for school board. So if you go to his Facebook, it's Billy Cook, you'll find his school board page. So please share, support, like. He has served on the school board before, and he was really dynamic and making things happen and change there. But also somebody mentioned instructional videos. So if you go to my YouTube, you just go to YouTube and type in Dr. Ruth Alisha Hill. There are videos for students, parents, and teachers. This video of this recording will be on my YouTube channel as well. I have a blog that's there, my learning partners, which I just showed to you. And then our co-host, Dr. Edwards, she talked about her website earlier, but it's icoachteachers.com. And again, we thank you all. If you want to stay back, Miss Annette Alvarez has said she will be willing to show anybody who wants to know about CommonLit, the program, and discuss data and stuff with you further. So again, thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. And spread the word, please. That's it.
And I want to say that Sharon is Sharon C 65.
Thank you.
Right.
Okay.
Instagram. I'm looking for you now.
Okay.
Awesome, guys. This is really awesome,
I
Dr.
know.
Ruth.
Thank you.
Awesome,
Definitely.
awesome.
Thank you. I hope that we can
I
have
have some items I can take back with me. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
It was really nice to meet everybody and see some familiar faces.
Yes, great.
Good luck, Billy. Good luck on your run.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Alisha.
yes.
All right.
Thank you all.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to stop recording. So